Hey everyone, it's Monday morning, October 14th. Welcome back to Capital Markets Quickie, where we give you a quick rundown on the big events coming up this week in the markets. I'm your host, Endrit Çela, and today we're talking about everything from earnings reports and retail sales to central bank rate cuts and the latest out of China. So, let's jump right in. Before we get started, just a quick reminder. Today's episode is brought to you by AMF Capital Asset Management Frankfurt. They're your go-to provider for personalized investment solutions and mutual funds. For more details, visit amf-capital.de. All right, first up is earnings season. It officially kicked off last Friday with some big names in banking, like JP Morgan and Wells Fargo, beating expectations and seeing their shares jump. This week, we've got more major banks on deck. Bank of America and Citigroup report on Tuesday. And on Thursday, Netflix is set to report after the market closes. Now, what's interesting about Netflix is that investors will be paying close attention to whether the streaming service is gaining or losing subscribers. This could give us some insight into how consumer spending is holding up, especially as we start to look at how the Fed's rate cuts might be boosting spending. With the stock market trading at pretty lofty valuations right now, companies need to deliver strong earnings growth to justify these high prices. So, we'll be watching closely to see how that plays out. Next, let's talk U.S. economic data. On Thursday, we're getting the latest retail sales numbers, and this is another big one. After last week's stronger than expected jobs report, investors are trying to figure out just how resilient the economy really is. A solid retail sales print could give us even more confidence that things are holding steady, which could also impact how the Fed approaches future rate cuts. And speaking of the Fed, we'll hear from several officials this week, including Governor Christopher Waller and Minneapolis Fed President Neel Kashkari. These talks could give us a bit more insight into how they're thinking about rates heading into the end of the year. Out here in Frankfurt, Germany, the European Central Bank is expected to deliver another quarter-point rate cut on Thursday. What's interesting is that just a month ago, no one really thought this would happen. But with economic growth slowing and inflation cooling down, it looks like the ECB is shifting gears. Turning to China, their third-quarter GDP numbers are set to come out on Friday. This will be a big one for investors who are watching how the world's second-largest economy is performing, especially after a weaker second quarter. Even though growth hasn't been spectacular, China's policymakers have been pretty confident about hitting their 5% growth target for the year. Recent stimulus measures have boosted stocks on the mainland, so we'll see if this GDP report gives investors more reason to be optimistic. Along with GDP, China will also release data on trade, house prices, and retail sales. So, we'll have plenty of data to gauge how they're managing through the rest of the year. Finally, let's talk oil. Prices have been bouncing around lately, mostly due to geopolitical tensions and natural disasters. Last Friday, oil settled lower but still managed to log its second straight week of gains. One of the key drivers has been the situation in the Middle East, with rising fears of conflict between Israel and Iran. On top of that, we've got Hurricane Milton impacting fuel demand in Florida. The state is the third largest consumer of gasoline in the U.S., so any hit to demand there can ripple through the oil markets. Between the Middle East tensions and recovery efforts in Florida, oil prices will likely stay volatile in the days ahead. And that's your quick look at what's moving the markets this week. We've got a lot going on with earnings, retail sales, central bank decisions, and geopolitical developments, so be sure to keep an eye on how things unfold. Thanks for tuning in to Capital Markets Quickie. I'm Endrit Çela, and I'll catch you tomorrow morning with a brand new episode. Stay sharp and have a great week.